Hello, I'm Greg. Welcome to my channel, Midnight Oil Software, and the second video in a series on music and sound effects in Unity. In the previous video, we created an audio mixer with audio mixer groups and snapshots for peaceful music and combat music. I created a basic music manager that had collections of music for peaceful and combat, and if we play it, you'll see that it will shuffle between the songs in whatever category we're in, and then you can smoothly transition between peaceful and between combat. So right now we are in peaceful. As you can see, this is the slider that's up here. If I right click on my music manager and say play combat music, you can see that it's smoothly cross-faded over to the combat music. So one of the things I want to do in this video is I want to show you how you can wire up some basic UI so that you can actually control the music settings through the UI. So we can set our master volume, the music volume, the sound effects volume, and so forth. And there's even another pop-up that I'll show you where we can basically do what I just did through the context menus and switch between peaceful and combat. But before I do that, what I really want to do is I want to do a little bit of refactoring. Now, this design and this implementation will actually work just fine. It's perfectly fine as long as we know we're only ever going to have combat and peaceful music to switch between. But the design is not really scalable if we want to add more. I mean, for instance, let's say I wanted to add village music or Goblin caves music, or, any other number of different types of music that we want to be able to switch between, forest music. Well, I would have to create new mixer groups. So in addition to combat and peaceful, I'd have to add forest, Goblin caves, dungeon, dwarven fortress, whatever I want. And then I'd also have to add snapshots for each of those. And then even worse is in the code. If we go into our music manager and we look at our code for this, I've got list of peaceful music and combat music. This would grow. We have to expose our mixer groups in here and our audio sources for those groups and the snapshots for them. And to make matters even worse, the code to actually play the music, to play combat music or play peaceful music, is going to have to be duplicated as well. So like I have this transition to peaceful music and transition to combat music, and they're pretty much identical, except for the snapshot that they're switching to and the playlist they're playing and the audio source they're using and so forth. But the code is pretty much exactly the same. So we're going to refactor this. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to make this much more scalable and a lot more generic as well. So we're going to have the ability to add as many different types of music as we want. And it'd be very simple to add more and more and more without complicating the code anymore. And it would really be ideal for like a music designer, somebody that's working along with the programmer, to add different types of music and the ability to switch between them. And we're going to start off by renaming these snapshots. So instead of having peaceful and combat, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to rename this to Mix 1. And Mix 2. So we're still going to have two snapshots, and we're going to be able to transition between them. But no matter how many more types of music we add, we're still only going to have these two snapshots. And this will make more sense as we get a little farther into this. I'm going to do the same thing under our mixer groups. Under music, I'm going to rename this combat mixer group to Mix 1. And I'm going to rename this one to Mix 2. All right. And now we're going to have to go into our code and start making some changes. So our music manager is going to change, but before we really change the music manager, I want to create a couple of scriptable objects. So that's another thing we're going to cover in this video. I know a lot of new Unity developers are kind of intimidated by scriptable objects. And one of my goals in this video is to show you there's really nothing to be afraid of. Scriptable objects are not that complicated. They're not that difficult to understand or use. And they can really simplify problems like this. They're really ideal for this type of use case. So what we're going to do is I'm going to actually go back into Unity, and up in our project under scripts, here under audio, I'm going to create a couple of scriptable objects. So right now we've got our constants and our music manager, but now I'm going to right click on here. I'm going to say create C# script, and I am going to call this music clip group. I'm going to move my microphone up. I try to get it out from in front of my face, but then my hands bump it. So let Unity recompile that. And I'm going to create another one while I'm here. And I'm going to call that music mix. All right, and let's go into the music clip group after Unity gets done compiling that. And I'm going to delete all of this boilerplate code here. And I'm going to change mono behavior scriptable object. So it's no longer a mono behavior. It's now a scriptable object. And we're going to want to add what's called an asset menu attribute. So the same way we added the context menu to our music manager, it's like we have this context menu where we can right click on it and say play peaceful music, play combat music. We're going to do the same thing in here, but it's going to be an asset menu. So I'm going to say create asset menu, and the file name is going to be, boy, I love GitHub Copilot. Let's just look at this. Assets, project, music. I need to create a music folder. Music groups. I'm going to call this music clip groups. And this will be music clip group. So it's going to put it in a folder under music clip groups, and it's going to call it music clip group. And I'll rename it after I create it. And then the menu name, I'm going to get rid of this Midnight Oil software. So I'm going to have audio tutorials, music clip group. And what does it not like about this? Why does it not like a file name? So casing is important here. All right, so there is our asset menu attribute. And just to show you what that looks like, if we go back out into Unity and let Unity recompile, I guess it already did. We go to Assets, Create, Audio Tutorial, Music Clip Group. So I can actually create an instance of this music clip group. Now, it's not going to work just yet because under Music, I need to create a folder, Music Clip Group. And I want to create another one here, and I want to call it Music Mixes. Okay, so going back into Writer, what do we want to do in our scriptable object here? So one thing this is going to have is a list of audio clips. So in our music manager, among other things, we had this a couple of lists of audio clips. We had one for peaceful music and one for combat music. This guy is just going to have one list, and it's just going to be music clips. So we're going to say list audio clip music clips, and we want this to be a serialized field. Okay, not sure what happened there. Now I want to add some private variables. I want to add a queue of audio clips. So a lot of the stuff that we were doing in here, we're now going to do in this music clip group. But instead of having multiple ones, you know, one for each different type of music, there's just going to be one. And so I hope you can see where we're going with this. This scriptable object is going to encapsulate all the stuff that we need to shuffle through songs for a particular type of music. So for combat music, for instance. And we will create multiple instances of this scriptable object for each type of music. And if we want to add more, we just add more. And our music manager is going to change to take a collection of these scriptable objects that we can just drag in there. And then when you want to actually switch to and start playing a particular type of music, You just pass in the name of the type of music you want to play. It'll go find it in this collection and play that type of music. And again, we'll implement all that. I just want to give you kind of a heads up ballpark view of where this is going. So I want a queue of audio clips. And there we go. It knows that I want this to be a track queue. Then I want a list of audio clips. And that's going to be our temporary list. So if you remember from the previous video, when we built our queue, we first populated a temporary list. Where did we do that? Yeah, so we first populated a temporary list, and then we picked from that list at random and added them to our queue. And that way our queue got populated with all of the songs from our temp list, but in a random order. So we're going to repeat that process in here, but a little bit differently. The other thing I want to do is I'm going to take our music manager as a transform. And the reason I'm going to do that is because when we create our audio sources, I want to make sure they are parented underneath of our music manager, just so they're neatly arranged in the hierarchy. Now, I'm not going to use the traditional lifetime methods, like, in a mono behavior you have awake and update and all that. And there are similar methods in scriptable objects, but I'm not going to use them. I'm just going to create this initialize function. I'm going to pass in the music manager. I'm going to assign that to our variable here. And then I'm going to call a function called initialize track queues. Okay. I wanted you to create that. There we go. So in initialize track queues, we're going to instantiate our queue and our list. Okay. Now, we also want to have a public method to actually play, or not play, but to get the next clip from this queue. So I'm going to have a public audio clip, get next music clip. And I really love GitHub Copilot. So it's basically checking to see if my queue is empty. If I don't have any songs in the queue, then go shuffle that queue for me. Go basically populate the queue, if I can say it, populate the queue with all the songs from our music clips list in a random order. Then we're going to take the top one off the queue and return it. All right. If we already have songs in the queue, we're just going to take the top one and return it. So let's go ahead and create this function. Shuffle track queue. Let's see what GitHub Copilot does for me. Nothing. Oh, there we go. All right. So by the way, the reason GitHub Copilot knows what I want to do here is not just because it can figure out by the name of the function, although it will do an amazingly good job of predicting what I want to do. I've already prototyped this code, and it remembers what I did in my prototype. And so it's suggesting that. So I trained it basically on my own work, and it remembers. So let's look at what this function is doing. We're saying if our queue is not empty, return. We don't need to build a shuffled queue because we already have songs in the queue. This should never happen, right? Because we're doing this if up here. But just in case, I'm going to check and I'm going to return. I'm going to clear my temp list array. Now, the reason I'm using a temp list here and I'm allocating it once here is because I don't want to create garbage on the stack every time I come in here and do this. So instead of creating garbage, I'm just going to clear my list, and then I'm going to basically copy all the songs from my music clips list into this list. Then, as long as I have songs in that temp list, I'm going to randomly take one using the random range from 0 to however many are left in the list. I'm going to grab that one by using temp list at random index, enqueue it, and then remove it from the temp list. So this is going to build my shuffled list. All right. I think that's it for this class. So now we want to look at our other scriptable object. Well, actually, before we look at our other scriptable object, we can actually utilize this one, assuming Unity is done compiling. So let's just go into this folder here, MusicClipGroup, and we're going to go up to Assets, Create, Audio Tutorial, Music clip group. And I got an error. Invalid generate unique path. It doesn't like assets, project, music, music clip groups. This needs to be plural. All right, let's try that again. Assets, create, audio tutorial, music clip group, and there it is. And we're going to call this one peaceful. Now I'm going to right click on this and do properties so I can keep this guy open and not have to worry about it losing focus when I select my music. So I'm going to come here under music to peaceful. I'm going to select all my peaceful songs and I'm just going to drag them into music clips. So now I've got a peaceful music group, right? Now I can, of course, come up here to assets, create, audio tutorial, music clip group. I can do that. Or I can select this and I can hit Control D and say duplicate and rename this to combat, right? So now I'm going to right click properties and I'm just going to delete all these. Can I clear that? Clear collection. So I'm going to come up here under music, combat, select all the combat music and drag it into music clips. So now I've got two instances of my music clip group scriptable object that I can now use to shuffle between songs for different types of music. And if I wanted to have more, if I wanted to have a village music, I could come up here and say assets, create, audio tutorial, music clip group, and I could say village. And then I could do forest, and I could do dwarven fortress, and I could do goblin dungeon, or whatever I want, right? I can just create multiples of these. And there's that. Okay, I just want to make sure that I've got everything that I need from the music group scriptable object, and it does. So I just noticed, looking at my other prototype code, that I don't need this transform for Music Manager. I'm not using that in here. So all I'm going to do is initialize my track cues in here. All right, so let's create another scriptable object. This one is going to be one for handling our music mixes and switching between the snapshots from combat to peaceful, or whichever. They're basically going to handle everything we need for a specific mix and snapshot. And the Music Manager will take a collection of them to handle switching and toggling between them. So let's go back into Unity and we'll go up to our project's music folder. Actually, I want to go into Scripts Audio. I'm already in Scripts Audio. I want to right click. Oh, I've already done this. I've already created this music mix class. So let's just double click that. And again, we're going to delete the boilerplate. I'm going to change this to Scriptable Object. And we're going to want to create an asset menu. And let's look at this one. I like it. I'm just going to change the order to 4. Not that this really matters. All right, so that looks good. So now we want to have a couple of serialized fields. We want to have one for the mixer group that this belongs to. And we want to have one for the audio mixer snapshot that this one belongs to. So autocomplete is having trouble. I'm not sure why I'm not getting my nice syntax highlighting that I'm used to. Hopefully this won't be a problem. And if I run into issues, I might have to reboot Unity or Rider or both. Let's see, audio source. And just like I did for the music clip group, I'm going to have a public initialize method. So this, I'm definitely going to need my music manager in here. So I'm passing in the music manager. I am going to create a new game object that's going to hold our audio source. I'm going to call it whatever our name is. So combat audio source or peaceful audio source. I'm going to set its parent to be our music manager's transform. I am going to create an audio source component and add that to it. And then I'm going to set these properties. Loop is going to be true, play on awake is going to be false, spatial blend is 0, and the volume is going to be 1. And then I'm going to assign the mixer group that this belongs to this audio source's output audio mixer group. So this audio source will output to that mixer group. All right. And then we want to have a function called play clip. We're going to pass in a clip. It's going to set that clip to the audio source's clip property. It's going to call play on the audio source. And then we're going to transition to this guy's snapshot. So if we're already in that snapshot, it wouldn't do anything. But the way I'm going to implement the music manager is I'm always going to switch snapshots when I play a different clip. So even if I'm going from peaceful to peaceful, I'm going to set the new clip on the other mix and transition to it. And that way, if I happen to switch in the middle of a song, it'll smoothly transition. Even though it's still peaceful music, it'll be a smooth transition. And you'll see that in effect when we debug things. But first, let's go out into Unity and go up to Assets, Create, Audio Tutorial, and it's still not this is why. Okay, let me go fix that. Remember, I deleted this in the other guy, but not this guy. All right. So I went back and edited because I wasn't getting my syntax highlighting. I wasn't sure why. So I closed the file and reopened it in Writer. I got my syntax highlighting. And I also removed the Midnight Oil software folder from this menu name. So now if we go back into Unity, so go up here to Assets, Create, Audio Tutorial. You now see we have Music Mix under here. If I click that, we're now creating this music mix underneath the music mixes. I'm going to call this one Mix 1. And then I'm going to Control D to duplicate that. Right click, rename Mix 2. And let's select Mix 1. We're going to come up here and we're going to select the Mix 1 music group, audio mixer group. And then we are going to select the Mix 1 snapshot. So if we go over here to our audio mixer, you see we got 2 snapshots. So we are going to pick Mix 1. Now if we come back over here and select Mix 2, we will pick Mix 2 and Mix 2. All right, so now we have 2 music mixes that we can transition between. And they can be for any type of music: combat, peaceful, peaceful to peaceful, peaceful to combat, combat to combat, whatever. So you're going to see how our music manager code is going to get a bit simpler and much more scalable. So selecting our music manager here, open that up in the editor. So we're going to refactor quite a bit. So first of all, this guy doesn't need to know about the audio mixer anymore. Okay, and we are no longer going to have lists of audio clips. But we do want to, in fact, I'm going to get rid of all this stuff. In fact, I'm just going to get rid of everything. Because we're going to rewrite this function pretty much from scratch. All right, so we do want some serialized fields. So we're going to want a list of our music groups. Okay, so those are our, that's not what I want. I want a list of music groups. List music clip group. Music clip groups. All right. And then we're going to want a list of music mixes. Just like that. And I want to have a variable called current mix index, which will keep track of which mix we're currently in. We're going to use that to toggle between them. And then we're going to have, so we can test this from the editor, we're going to have a context menu for peaceful music. And these will go away This is just here for testing. Public void play peaceful music. And we'll have one for combat music. Public void play combat music. And they're both going to call a function called PlayMusic. And this is going to be the group name. Music group name. All right. But first, I want to have a start method that will do our initialization. All right. That delete button. So we're doing three things in here. We're going to initialize our music clip groups, and we're going to initialize our music mixes, and then we're going to play peaceful music. All right. So let's go down and do the initialize music groups. So basically, that's going to iterate through all of our music clip groups and call initialize on them. So you remember, they have a public initialize method that initializes our track cues. That's what that's doing. And then we want to do the same thing for our music mixes. We're going to iterate through our music mixes and call initialize on them. So now what do we want to do in play music? I want to get our current music group. I'm going to add a method called get music group. Pass in the music group name. Let's go ahead and create that variable. Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to create a field. All right, so now I want this to actually be a music clip group. All right. And then I want to have this function get music group. And that's going to do a lambda where it's going to look for the first music clip group whose name is the same as the name we passed in and return that. Okay, so after we've got our music group, we want to call a new function called play next track. So let's go ahead and create that. I'm going to say let GitHub Copilot do its thing. So this is going to get the next clip from our current music group, and then it's going to tell the current music mix to play that clip. All right. And actually, before I tell it to play it, I want to toggle the current mix because I want to do a crossfade between the mixes. So let's look at that. So we're going to take our current mix, and if it's, so there's a number of ways to do this. We can add one and then use a modulus operator to reset it back to the mod of whatever, you know, it'll wrap around to 0 if we go past the ends of the index, if we go past 1. So it'll basically toggle between 0 and 1. And I guess that's good enough, but the way I was thinking of doing it is doing something like current mix index equals 0 and just doing a 1 or a 0. So a conditional operator. So if it's 0, I set it to 1. If it's 1, I set it to 0. 6 and 1, half dozen any other. It really doesn't matter. All right. Then after that, I want to play the clip, and I want to have a coroutine to cue the next track. So let's come down here and say enumerator cue next track. I want to do a yield return new wait for seconds, and that's going to have to take a delay. So I want to have a float delay. All right, so if you're not familiar with coroutines and this yield return and wait for seconds, this is a function that will keep running every frame. Basically, Unity will call into this every frame, and as long as we haven't eclipsed this delay, we're just going to return. We're just going to do nothing. But once we have elapsed, once this delay has elapsed, we're going to fall through and execute the next statement in here. And that next statement is going to be play next track. So what I want to do is up here, after I tell this mix to play that clip, I want to say start coroutine, cue next track, and give it the length of the clip that's playing. So this, as soon as this song is done playing, it's going to cue up the next one. Now, the other thing I want to do up here is stop all coroutines. So if there's a coroutine running and I come in here and call play music, I want to stop that coroutine so it doesn't automatically call play next track when this time has elapsed. So I think that might be it for this class. All right, so here's our music manager, and you can see this looks very different than it used to. We no longer have those collections of the different types of songs. We no longer have the serialized field for the mixer groups and the snapshots and all that. Now all we've got is a collection of music clip groups and music mixes. So I'm going to right click on this and select properties, so I have this dialog that won't lose focus. Go into our our music clip groups, excuse me. I want to select both of these groups and drag them into music clip groups. And then I want to go into our music mixes and I want to grab them and pull them into our music mixes. And I think we're good to go. So I hope you can see how this would be very scalable. We can add as many more music clip groups as we want, and then all we've got to do is just drag them into the music manager. We would create the music clip groups, and we only need these 2 mixes, so that's fine. Just create as many of these scriptable objects as we need, drag in the songs, and then add them to this collection right here. And then the music manager only cares that, hey, I want to play combat music, I want to play peaceful music, I want to play fortress music, village music, forest music, whatever. And it just looks up the one it wants to play from that music clip. So now, let's see if this works. I'm going to give this a test. Theoretically, we should see it switch to, I think it will actually switch to mix 2. I'm going to switch over here to mix 1. Oh, these are backwards. Let me pull that up. Let me pull that down. Let me pull that down and let me pull that up. Okay, that would have been really confusing when I went to test. All right, so now it should switch to mix 2 because we're going to toggle the mixer group. It should start playing peaceful music, and then we should be able to smoothly transition between them using our music manager context menus. And we should also see appearing under here our audio sources. Let's hit play. So there's our mix 1 audio source, our mix 2. It's playing peaceful music. You can see it's on mix 2 up here. I'm going to right click on our music manager. And I'm going to say peaceful again. And it should just switch to the next song, but you should see it transition from mix 2 to mix 1. Nice smooth transition. Nice crossfade. Let's try that again. I like it. All right, let's go to combat music this time. Let's try some different combat music. All right. Well, there you go. We have done some nice refactoring. We showed you how we could simplify our audio mixer groups and snapshots, and how we could utilize scriptable objects to make a very scalable and modifiable music manager that will grow as you want to add more types of music. So in the next video, we're going to show you how to wire up the UI, and I'm also going to show you how you can use trigger colliders to automatically change between combat and peaceful when you get closer or farther away from an enemy. So thanks so much for watching. And if you haven't already, by the way, my new game, Highland Panic, has already released. It's out on Steam. It's available for the Apple App Store, and it's available on Google Play. There are links in the description below. And if you're interested in any of the assets that I used in this tutorial, either the the scenery or the music or the UI components, whatever. I'll have links to those assets in the description. They are affiliate links, so if you do buy those assets using my links, I will get a little bit of a commission. So if you were looking for a way to help support my channel and you were thinking of buying assets anyway, that's an option you could do. If you haven't already, if you found my tutorials useful, be sure to click like and subscribe to my channel, and let your friends know about this channel. If you have any friends that do Unity game development that you think might be interested in these tutorials, it would really help me to grow my channel as well. So once again, thanks so much for watching, and good luck on your game development journey.